Alright, so hi class. So welcome back. Now we are going to talk about sociolinguistics. So in our previous lesson, we were able to talk about communications 1 and 2 and also the importance of communication and culture. Now let's talk about further about sociolinguistics. So now let's define first what is sociolinguistics. So sociolinguistics is the study of language used in its social contexts. So any language that we use in a social context is also known as social linguistic. It may be formal or informal type of social linguistic. Anything that involves the language we use to talk with other people, that is also or that is known as social linguistics. So while linguistics primarily analysis the structure of language, social linguistics analysis language function and use. So we also have the term linguistics, which focuses on the language itself, wherein how it is structured, how it is its functions and forms, while on social linguistic, it now focuses on the function and its use. So how it is used, how is it expressed, and etc. All right. So in social linguistics, this was developed in 1960s. So now let's talk about the basic principles around or about social linguistics. So social linguistics concerned with the complex relationship between language and society. So those who study social linguistics actually pertains or focuses more on the relationship between the language in that society and how this society relates to the language in that society. All right. So language reflects society. So again, as mentioned a while ago, it started in 1960s. Actually, it ranges from 1960s to 1990s. So again, I keep on emphasizing the importance of language in our topic ever since we started this class. So because language is actually an expression of culture, and also language also reflects the society. So, like for example, calling the judge Your Honor reflects the hierarchical authority structure in courtrooms. So, yes, the language that we use, like po and opo, is an example of our respect to the elderly. Just like calling someone or calling a lawyer, a judge, Your Honor, it means that that person is actually the one of the highest or the highest one, highest authority in that courtroom. And also, we also have the term ate and kuya. So it means that they are the eldest in the family of siblings, right? So ate is your elder ate, and then kuya is your eldest elder brother. And also lola and lolo. Okay, so as you can see, our language reflects our society and also it reflects hierarchy as well. Language and culture determines aspects of society. That's according to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So again, I keep on emphasizing the importance of language in our culture because this two actually determines the aspects of our society. So now let's continue. On the 21st century, social linguistics assumes a dynamic and reciprocal relationship between language and society. So that language usage at the same time both reflects and shapes society. So now we are actually on the 21st century. So right now our language differs and also it's dynamic. It changes over time. We've used a lot of languages right now that are not applicable before, and also we started new languages right now, or words or reactions right now that are just new according to us millennials and Generation Zs. So as you can see, our language in a society may change and it also may vary. Okay, let me just give you an example. The SKL response in a chat message means share ko lang. It means that someone is actually sharing something and that person just wanted the rest of the group wants to know about it. That's SKL. And also sorry na Or if you're going to type in in a message, it will spell like SORNA, so that's sorna, but actually it's sorina. So as you can see, these languages are not applicable before. However, since our generation started it, now we already have that kind of language. Okay? So in simple terms, in our society, we are now having, in this generation, we have a new set of language that are now used and hopefully will be adopted by the previous generation. So, a language characterized by variation. So I keep on saying this a while ago, that our language also varies and dynamic. So as our society grows older, it changes over time. So variation can be studied along two dimensions. The diachronic variation, all languages changes over time, and synchronic variation, differences in the ways in which language is used in the same time period. People speak differently in different contexts. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, our language is dynamic, and it also depends on the generation where we at. Now, according in here, language actually varies in two ways. So first is diachronic variation and also synchronic variation. When we say diachronic variation, all of the language changes over time. Again, all of it will change over time. However, in synchronic variation, in here, some of the language changes. However, some of the language that changes actually changes as well its contexts. Okay, some of its contexts as well. Okay, so okay, let me just think of a very common expression today that we're in. Before it has a very different meaning, but right now it has a different aspect. Okay, so like for example, the term elite or elitists. Okay, elitist. Actually, elitist is a very broad topic, but before it was elitist, or these are people before. If you use the word elitist before, it was actually those people who belong in the higher class and who are very much elite and known for their socioeconomic status. Those are elitists. But right now, due to the political changes and also the impact of social media, elitists are now being used differently. Like for example, if you just studied in a very prestigious school, you are now categorized as elitists, or someone who voted for this kind of president is also now being considered as elitist. So as you can see, our context changes in synchronic variation. So some of the languages are still the same. These languages might be the same, or some of it may change, however the context differs. Again, in diachronic variation, all languages changes over time. However, in synchronic, some of the languages changes and it has a different context this time. I hope that's clear. Okay, so let's continue. The language variation is ubiquitous and related to social factors. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, our generation has a very big impact on the changes of our languages, as well as in the society. So in language variation in here, it is said to be that our language is very much related on its social factors. We also have the word dialects. Dialects forms of a language which are generally mutually intelligible and which differ from each other in systematic ways, such as in accent, grammar, words and their meaning, and the communication patterns. Dialects in here is in Filipino we called it dialecto. In here, in our country, for example, we have different dialects. Okay, here in NCR or in Metro Manila, we can we can assume that the common dialect here is Tagalog. Okay, when you go to Visayas region, the dialect will be Visaya, Cebuano, Waray, and etc. And in Mindanao, there would be a tons other dialects as well. It's actually depending on what province you came from. Okay. However, if NCR has Tagalog dialect, what would be the pambansang wika, or the language of the Filipinos? It's actually Filipino. Okay, Filipino composed of different dialects together, and it is now portrayed in other countries that if you are Filipino, you actually speak Filipino word or Filipino language. All right. So again, as you can see, there's dialects are languages of different forms depending on where you at in our country. That's a dialect, and when it's combined together, it composes Filipino, or our national language, right? So as you can see, dialects is much smaller than 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 the language. Okay. So again, let me just emphasize that it differs on grammar, accent, words, and its meaning as well. So, yes. All right. Okay. Furthermore, differences between social groups based on ethnicity or geographical and or political space often correspond to the use of different language varieties. So, like what I've mentioned a while ago, if you came from NCR or in Luzon, you would be having a different dialect than in Visayas and also in Mindanao. So, our word mahal here in Metro Manila can mean expensive or love, but in other regions, it can be gugma and many more. All right. So as you can see, like what I've mentioned a while ago, our dialect depends on where we at in our country, and also our ethnicity and many more. So to continue, variation can be attributed to social factors such as geographical location, socioeconomic background, level of education, age and gender, situational and contextual factors like who is speaking to whom and about what and where. So, like what I've mentioned a while ago, we have here in our country we have one language, and that is Filipino. And when we travel to other places here in the Philippines, you'll be encountering people of different dialects, and with that you'll realize that the way they speak and the way they say Tagalog words would be very different, because of where they came from. Like some of them will mention or will speak a bit louder than usual, or some of them would sound peachy, and many more. Okay, this is called the variation, and this all depends on where you at, or your geographical location, what is your socioeconomic background, okay, actually our status as well here in our society also says more about that. So some people says that if you're not really good in English, you're not that belong. Okay, so there's a very stereotypical judgment towards that if you can't speak straight in English, you'll be judged that you're either poor, or you're either low class or whatever. But those are all judgments. Okay, those are not facts, those are just judgments and their opinions. That does not mean that if someone who is really good in English, that person is much smarter than anyone else. That's not true. Okay, and also we also have also the variation depends on the level of education. Well, truth be told, but not all everyone in here can actually understand. I mean, not everyone in other places can actually understand a very in-depth English. Okay, so some of them might still use dictionaries or still uses Google. So I myself is not really good in English. I can't even say that I'm really good at English, because I still use dictionary. So if someone from an English country or from a very good English spoke to me, I might still use the dictionary. Okay, it also depend on your educational background, and then also your age and gender also is a consideration of that, and also your situational and contextual factors is also a factor with that. because sometimes where you at and your exposure to society can also influence your language variations as well. All right. So we also have the term speech community. So speech community defined by the language they use, as their language forms their boundaries. So like for example, before the example. So speech community per se is actually the language that is used in a specific community, okay? It also includes variations or boundaries. It will give boundaries to other people. Well, they actually intend that to happen, so they can assure to themselves that they themselves are the only ones who belong to that community. Okay, so let's have an example. So in religion, okay, so if you go or attended a Christian organization or in a Christian church, there are some languages that is being defined by others differently, or they use words that are not familiar with other religions. Okay, so let me just give you an example. I'm not saying that this would be the best example, but let me just give you one. So for example, the word salvation. So salvation actually differs from Christian born again, Protestants born again, Episcopalian born again, and also of course it's differ to the Roman Catholics, and and also the Muslims, and many more. So that's actually one of it. And also in LGBTQIA. So LGBTQIA plus also have different lingos. So these lingos actually make them comfortable within their community, that they are only the ones who can actually use it and express it in the way that it should be used or expressed. Okay, so actually that's what speech community is all about. Furthermore, it is a product of communicative activities engaged in by a group of people. Again, speech community, these are not intended, but it actually happens naturally whenever you belong to a group, or whenever you see a group together. They actually have a different speech community, and that happened because the way they communicate, and it actually came from comes naturally. All right, so throughout our lives we may belong to a different speech communities synchronically and diachronically as we move in and out of different communities. All right, so it like language, of course, language is speech community is also still part of language. It still varies. Okay, it still develops over time. It actually changes. It's still dynamic. Okay, we also have the term diglossia. Diglossia. Okay, diglossia is actually a term by Charles Ferguson, which actually refers to specific situations in which two varieties of the same language exist. We have the high variety and also the low variety. So the high variety, it means official for official purposes, and low variety is for informal purposes. Okay, so let me just give you an example for that. So diglossia actually, it's diglossia. Okay, diglossia is actually, that's why it's because it's duo. So it means that one language can have different meaning at the same time. Okay, so one that is formal, which means it's high variety, and one that is informal, that is low variety. Okay, let me just think of a very common word right now that is being used in diglossia. Let me see. I think okay, I can't really think of any other word, but I can just think of the word kabit. So kabit is actually right now, if you go to Tulfo in Action, at the television show by Rafi Tulfo, the kabit was used very most of the time. It's being used most of the times, especially if that person yes, if that person is in a relationship with other. Okay, so how is this very much diglossia? Okay, in low variety of kabet, it means someone who is with for example, a girl who is in a relationship with a guy. However, this guy cheated with another girl. So this girl whom he cheated with is actually called kabet. Okay, so that doesn't mean that the couple should does the couple should is necessarily or does not necessarily need to be legalized by the law to be called kabet, or to be called the other women as kabet. Okay, the law, I mean that's how common the kabet word is being used. Okay, so you don't have to be married for you to call someone a kabet. It's already a common term that if you cheated with someone rather, that person whom you cheated with is actually the kabet. Okay. Okay, so also if we have foreign students here, kabet is actually the partner, or the how can I say this, the other woman or the other man in the relationship. Okay, so that's the other woman or the other man in the relationship. However, in diglossia, in high variety, kabet is actually just given to the person whom the cheater is with while legally married to their partner. Okay, again, kabet in the high variety is when the cheater, for example, the guy is the cheater, and then he cheated with another woman, so that woman would be the kabet. Okay, so the person that cheater is married with is the legal spouse. Okay, so it has legality first before you can call someone a kabet. Okay, I hope that's clear. Again, diglossia, according to Charles Ferguson, composes of a language that has two meanings. So that depends on its official purpose, which is high variety, and low purpose, which is informal. Low variety, which is informal purpose. Also, we have the age. So the language you use changes over our lifetime. I've also mentioned this, okay, a while ago. So our age also has an influence on our language. So as we grow up, our language changes, and also when our generation changes, our language also differs. So in adolescence, a particularly the right time for language development, as adolescents want to mark themselves as different from their parents' generations. So unconsciously, we were able to develop new languages based on our background and what's the trending now. Okay, so this typically happened. Our language typically happened due because of this happened usually at the age of adolescence. Okay, so we also have the term speech accommodation. So speech accommodation leads us to position ourselves with respect to other speakers through convergence or divergence. So speakers converge when they want to reduce the social distance, and they diverge when they want to emphasize their distinctiveness or increase their social distance. Okay, so we have speech accommodation in here. It depends on where we are or where we wanted to be. Okay, so or the position where we wanted to be. So we can be on converge or diverge. Converge when we wanted to be socially active or we wanted to socialize with others, we have to converge our language or our speech to them, while diverge is when we actually wanted to distance ourselves to them. Okay, so that is speech accommodation. Okay, I really can't give a very good example with this one, but if you're familiar with the Big Bang Theory, wherein Sheldon, the main character, is actually a scientific genius. So Sheldon in here actually tend to, well, he is actually socially awkward. Okay, so since he is very socially awkward and doesn't want to socialize so much, he tend to have a speech diversion. Okay, where he diverge, where he distinctively speak in a different words, and yes, different manner, using different words for them to distance themselves to others. All right, and that's actually Sheldon. Well, converge in here, you're actually go and accommodate the words, or yes, the words of the group, so you can socialize with them. In simple terms, pakikisama. That's what converge happen. Oh, that's what happens in converge. Okay, pakikisama, or pakikisama is socializing. Okay. All right. We also have lexical variation. So as we move across social and geographical communities within a wider speech community, we find differences in words and expressions used to refer to the same or similar items or phenomenon. So in here, lexicons, this actually came from the root words lexicon, is that some of the words that we have, again, differ. It differs whether where you at, or what community or geographical location you are at. Okay? So that's lexicon, lexical variation. So we may have, or we may be staying at the same generation, the 21st century. However, we have different lexicons depending on where we are right now. Okay, where exactly we are right now. So are you from the province? Are you in the Metro Manila? And etc. Alright, so that's actually the end of this lesson. So please let me know if you do have questions. Please let me know at our group chats, or you can just comment on this video. So thank you very much for watching, and see you on our next class. Thank you. Bye for now.